Okay, so today I'm going to start with the West's simplistic view of China, and then we're going to move into where are China's homeless, and to give you an understanding how I come into this picture. I started doing Chinese internal kung fu in the mid-1980s, Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Shi. And all of my interaction really was with people that left because of the Cultural Revolution, and a lot or most were associated with various Taoist temples. So that's where I'm coming from, and where some of my best friends have ever come from that I've ever met in my life to this day. So what we're going to do now is go to Dr. Jin, and she will take the early part of this video. And questions, comments, by all means, throw in chat.
But if you look at the World Value Survey, the average Chinese would say they prefer over 90% for security over liberty. And in the US, less than 30%. We've looked at throughout history, lots of these, common sense views of let's try to suppress the competitor in various ways, cut them off, embargoes, blockades, technological export controls and so forth. Those have never worked. But now it's especially stark because China has become a major, major superpower. And it's not just in terms of economic size, but real technological potency.
Why do you think the West insists on viewing China through either a ideological or less geopolitical kind of political stance?
Today we are reacting to Chinese economist Dr. Keyu Jin, someone I believe is in the perfect position to bridge China and the West, giving us the proper lens from which to see Chinese society. But before we begin, please subscribe if you haven't. It really helps support the channel. All right, let's get to it.
The three biggest misunderstandings about China would start with the model, which I've written extensively about. I was trained in the West as an economist, and we learned basically three macroeconomic models, and there was no role of the state. But here, China has the state model. We're opening the debate about industrial policy from America to Europe, actually distilling the lessons from China. But is it really a politically centralized model as we see it? I think it's much more nuanced, has its strength, has its weaknesses. Second is a huge misunderstanding of the Chinese people. But just on things like the relationship between people and authority is something that if we use a purely Western lens to look through, we're always going to get something that is puzzling, that is maybe even offensive to some, and something that is very difficult to understand, to grapple. But authority, right, the notion of that implicit contract, even between the emperor and the people from thousands of years ago, to modern day families, between children and parents, to school teachers and students, that is not blind submission. At the same time, there is a certain amount of deference for authority.
Dr. Keyu nails the foundational problem that Western economics pretend there is no state intervention, zero role for the state, as if the state didn't build the American railroads, the interstate highways, the internet, or the GPS satellites, as if every major Western industrialization wasn't state-directed at its core. China's sin isn't having a state model, but admitting it, and the implicit contract point is crucial. We read Chinese deference to authority as authoritarianism or brainwashing, but Dr. Keyu traces it to family structures, teacher-student relationships, a cultural continuity going back millennia. And once we understand this, we can see this isn't blind submission, but different social structure.
So there are a lot of these kind of examples, even on things, how you value between freedom or liberty to security. It's obviously a spectrum, and there are, in many cases, clear trade-offs. But if you look at the World Value Survey, the average Chinese would say they prefer over 90% for security over liberty. And in the US, less than 30% would prefer security over liberty, although I haven't checked in the last 2 years, but this was 2018. So again, if we take that lens, cultural lens, civilizational lens, geopolitical lens, national security lens to look through China, you're going to miss this country that is complex, but clearly very important.
This isn't about right or wrong. It's about context. It reveals the fundamental trade-offs that different societies are willing to make based on their history and values. If we only view China through a single lens, whether cultural, geopolitical, or national security, we risk missing the bigger picture. China is complex, it is nuanced, and regardless of that spectrum, understanding its position is vital to understanding our world. We must let the arrogance go in our Western frame or analysis by assuming our own cultural settings are the universal preference.
Why?
Yeah, but also what we need to do is understand it's very simplex. And when you look at it from the Yellow River civilization being the foundation of the culture of that society, and I want to also emphasize how my influence has been through the Shanghai Sports Club and through marriage to the youngest daughter of a second generation removed from the East India Company. And if you understand that emphasis, then you'd understand the opium trade and the fact that the East India Company had a larger military than Queen Victoria at that time. And second generation removed was still greatly influenced by the beliefs and their understanding of their role in society over others. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move to the second video. I think we've had enough here for what I need at this point. And what I'm going to move into is a gentleman that was 16 years, past 16 years living in China. And he's going to give you a totally different view on the ground so you can see for yourself it's not anything like you expect. And for whatever reason, Western, especially America, they're demonizing China as a villain, and far from it. There are unique characteristics of the new Han dynasty under Xi Jinping, which is a totally different topic, but you can negotiate with them, and you can negotiate with them in a way that has a stronger foundation than you'll get through Trump and his administration. So we'll let this gentleman take this portion of the video away. Whoopsie, wrong button. The wrong button, monsieur.
Why don't you see homeless people on the streets in China? Are they chased away? Are they locked up somewhere? The answer is none of the above, and it comes down to a system that most Americans have never heard of. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might be asking why your country doesn't do the same thing. Today, I'm breaking down the unique Chinese system. Hey, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. This is the question I get more than almost any other: homelessness in China. So today, I'm breaking down exactly how it works, piece by piece. And I might make you a little angry or frustrated on why your country can't deal with homelessness head on like China. Stay with me. And in this video, I'm not going to be walking all over China looking for homeless people. There has been enough content creators showing that and proving the fact that it doesn't exist or it's minimal. I'm simply going to be talking about what China does to avoid homelessness. And if homeless people are found, what the country does to help them. This is going to be a good one. I hope you stay with me. Hopefully everybody's aware of China's major accomplishment of lifting 800 million people out of poverty. First, there's something called Dibao, China's minimum living allowance. In 2025, nearly 40 million people received this. On average, that's about 800 RMB per month. Divide that by 6.8 today's exchange rate, and that's around 118 US dollars. And right off the bat, I know what you're thinking. Chris, nobody can survive on that. Let me explain. In the big cities, you're right, they can't. But here's where it gets interesting. Most of the people receiving Dibao are in rural areas. Stay with me. Let me continue to explain this. Living in these rural areas, you most likely have a simple home. Grow your own food. Sell your vegetables at the local market. Between making some money selling your vegetables and the Dibao, you have the basics. You have food, shelter, clothes, and you're living a simple, happy life. Now, how do I know this? Trust me, I know it. Because my Chinese family lives in a rural area. And if you have those three things I just mentioned, food, clothes, and shelter, you're far less likely to ever end up on the street in the first place. That is not propaganda. And that is the truth in China. And that is something that I truly know and understand firsthand. Okay, let's talk about the second thing. This is the part that China does well, but it's the part that the people in the West get completely wrong. I call it the rescue system. Community grid workers, civil affairs staff, urban management officers. These people know their neighborhoods. They patrol their neighborhoods. And when they find someone sleeping on the street or who needs help, here's what doesn't happen. And let me repeat that. Here's what does not happen. They do not automatically harass them. They do not arrest them. They do not chase them off the corner. They actually ask the person if they need help, and they do it with compassion. They work on connecting with the person and do it with a heart. They work with the person to find out if they need shelter, food, a bed, clean clothes, medical care. They ask if they need help getting back in contact with their family. They ask if they need help with transportation back to their hometown. And that's just some of the process. And I want to be honest with you, tell you the truth, because that's the whole point of this channel. People who need help, it's voluntary. Nobody's forced. If you want to keep walking, you can. You're not swept away like trash. I'm going to do my best to not make this a US bashing video. But have you seen what takes place in the US? Where as an example, in Santa Monica or Los Angeles, they will come by with a trash truck and just toss everything. Your tent, your bicycle, your belongings, your clothes. And they'll do it right in front of you. It's horrific. But again, I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to simply continue to talk about what China does to help their own. Do me a favor, keep watching. It's going to get better. Now stay with me, because this is where it gets real. A couple of months ago, I heard a Los Angeles mayor candidate say something that really stuck with me.
Los Angeles doesn't have a homeless problem. We have a drug problem. The DEA will tell you that over 90% of the homeless population in LA are hardcore illicit drug users.